We begin this morning with the Daily Trust newspaper, and on the front page of the Daily Trust, the big story is saying Tinubu breaches law on Olukoyede's appointment as EFCC chair, says experts. No law violated, says presidency. Tinubu asks Supreme Court to dismiss Article's appeal. Troops uncover bodies in IPOB's enclaves. Okay, I don't know what the details of that story are. IPOB's enclaves, bodies are found there. Wow. 270 varsities seek licenses as federal government opens space for foreign institutions. So it's interesting that the federal government is opening space for foreign institutions. How well are we doing with our Nigerian universities? And I'm asking because of the accreditation, the number of universities that are lacking, that have not yet been accredited, right? I have students who go to school not knowing if they're going to NYSC, if they're going to serve, or if their results would be quote unquote valid. Why? Because they haven't been accredited. So I'm hoping that that's something that can be revisited even as we're giving license to foreign universities. I don't know if it's the same body that does the accreditation that gives the licenses to run a university, but it should be, I think.
Accreditation mostly is done by the Nigerian Universities Council, NUC, to accredit, those departments. Yeah, so I mean, it's a conversation that should be expanded, definitely.
Right. Many fear dead, trapped in 3 tankers fire accident in Lagos. That was the sad story I saw. I think it was early in the early hours of this morning that I saw the story. 2024 Hajj. Nakon gives intending pilgrims 3 weeks to deposit 4.5 million naira. So I don't know if we should go into the story, but pilgrimage is a conversation that has generated mixed reactions from a number of Nigerians. People wonder, why do we keep sending pilgrims to Jerusalem, to Mecca? Why do we keep sending pilgrims? If somebody wants to go and experience pilgrimage, shouldn't they be able to afford it on their own? Why are we taking from the nation's coffers to send the same set of people, select few people, people that have some level of connect at the end of the day? People that, some of them are even people that can actually afford the pilgrimage. Yet we're sending them on pilgrimage. What's the essence? What are we trying to foster? What are we trying to push? Let everybody sponsor themselves. Anyway, they've been given 3 weeks to deposit 4.5 million naira. And we wish them all the best. Mixed reactions as CBN lifts FX ban on rice, cement, toothpicks, 40 others. I remember when they said, when we had this conversation, interestingly, I had this conversation 8 years ago as well. And we're talking about the ban and how there was a ban on several items, including toothpicks. And we said, so something as small as toothpick was still important, as small as toothpick.
Yeah, because the foreign one, according to, these traders, foreign one is better.
Yeah.
Whatever. The point is, Nigerians are anxious to see what this does and, how much change this brings to our economy. What improvements would this also make, with the exchange rate? The question has always been, what are we producing? In what ways are we producing? Is this also another question? Is this also going to put more pressure on the federal government to provide forex? And how do they navigate these different aspects of it? And this is one of the questions that I tried to get clarity on in our previous interview here in the first half of Breakfast Central. These are some of the things that would be asked, and it's also important to once again point out that the narrative is that 8 years was wasted. If the federal government at this point decides that they're going to lift that ban and they're now going to be providing forex for these items.
So
then what did we do in the last 8 years?
Them, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, at what point, did somebody tell themselves that, or why didn't someone tell themselves that, okay, maybe we're getting it wrong in the last 8 years? And is that, it's the same political
If you see the
party.
cost of, have you compared the cost of rice from 8 years ago to the cost of rice
It's
now?
a lot higher
and I'm
now.
talking of local rice, we're not talking of basmati or imported rice.
Yeah.
We're talking of local rice.
Yeah, but my point is, it's not just rice. There's also some
just
items
as
there
an
for
example,
construction,
yeah.
Household items and
What
all of that
have we
were
done?
Imported. The point is, why was the ban kept in place? And 1, 2, 3 years later, nothing was changing, and we still kept it in place. It's pretty much the same thing when they closed the borders, to some states across northern Nigeria, with the expectations that we're going to improve on our rice production. Didn't work. Nothing changed, and eventually the ban was lifted. So we maybe need to have a new time frame with which government policies will be reversed when the government has seen that these policies do not work. But we'll see. let's move away from the Daily Trust. See what we can find on other newspapers this morning. The Daily Independent newspapers comes up next. It says there, CBN governor targets $1 trillion GDP growth in 8 years.
I hope that they have a way to go around this. It's not just targeting.
I hope so too. There's also extremists slaughtering and feasting on fellow human beings, says Defense Headquarters. As troops kill 50 terrorists, arrest 114, with the arrested 114 be eventually forgiven and be, claimed to have been repentant Boko Haram members or what? Guarded optimism as Oluko Ede, first Southerner, emerges EFCC chair after 20 years. Not just guarded optimism, but also criticism as to whether he is actually qualified to, hold that position or not. And of course, these things will not be dismissed. A government that, sees these, little items here and there and doesn't immediately reverse it. It's a government that obviously isn't listening to the people, and you cannot go against, these acts. Israel-Hamas war strikes devastate Gaza as Israel prepares for possible ground assault. CSU records alien to Atiku's appeal. Dismiss it, Tinubu begs Supreme Court. And final story this morning. Legal Practitioners Committee confirms Ajulo, 57 others as senior advocates of Nigeria. These are the big stories on the Daily Independent newspapers this morning. We, of course, take a short break. When we come back, Breakfast Central continue. All right, welcome back. While, of course, we continue with the conversations this morning, I think we're going to quickly go through one final newspaper, just quickly share our thoughts, and then get right into the next conversation. The Punch newspapers this morning says right there, CBN raises dollar supply, lifts ban on cement and 42 items. 8-year forex ban on rice, 42 others removed. CBN insists on single FX rate. Atiku's evidence from Chicago irrelevant, Tinubu tells Supreme Court. Israel, Hamas. UK, US, India evacuate citizens. Death hits 2,700. Just want to quickly remind everyone that when we see these things, I understand that the world is numb now to death and numb to these stories now. But just to remind everyone that we're talking about 2,700 lives that have so far been, taken by these very, very disastrous, gruesome, heartbreaking acts of terror and, bombing and whichever word you want to describe it with. It's 2,700 lives. And we should, before we start to think about who's at fault and who, we need to blame and whose side that we're going to, take, like one church here in Lagos, we should first of all, most importantly, be preaching peace. That's the core, and that's the only thing that we should first of all start with before you start to, to ask who's wrong and who's right.
And it's even dividing a lot of people on social media because it's like, oh, I support this side. And if you are not supporting this side, I cancel you.
2 die, others injured in Osun collapse building. Also, diesel-laden tanker crashes on Lagos Highway, traps bus. We can also find here LPPC names 58 lawyers. SAN drops 11 professors. These are the stories that we can take on the Punch newspapers this morning.